Thank you all so much for joining today. So to start things off, it might be useful for our audience to hear a brief overview from each of you on the current COVID landscape in your markets and how things have changed over the past few months. Bettina, how is it today in Singapore?
I'm mute, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you for the introduction, Ryan. Hi, everyone on the call. Singapore, how is the situation? Yes, in general, we've been seeing some opportunities to go back to the office. So yesterday was our first day not working from home, which is of course like a big step forward. However, Singapore is very strict in their measurements, and they want to avoid a second wave. So government support was great during all this time, just because it was impacting all our businesses, and to avoid the biggest issues, which is unemployment. They have done a lot to help us to go through this crisis. However, business is affected, our clients are affected, and of course, COVID, it seems to me, is just an accelerator of the developments that we saw previously before COVID. So in a good way and in a bad way, companies and brands that understood that the importance of digital and how you need to work with e-commerce and the digital presentation of the client is so important. If they have managed this pre-COVID, then they are less affected. If they haven't, then we see, of course, that they are very challenged at the moment, as we can understand. For us as an agency, of course, it was not business as usual. Certainly, we had to adapt. I think we haven't been as busy as in the last 8 weeks, because in these unprecedented times, it was we had to adapt very quickly, find new ways to connect with our clients, connect with media, and somehow help clients to navigate through this situation. And there are definitely phases that everyone saw and has experienced from the initial shock, honestly, then afterwards understanding that we have to somehow, there's a reality check. Then there is your question about health issues and safety. Before you, strangely enough, come into a kind of a routine of your staying at home, and then looking as well into new opportunities, adapting innovation, innovative ways of communicating with your audience again. So different phases. We are now preparing ourselves to get out of this stay home and the lockdown, and yeah, this requires a lot of innovative thinking and new ways of connecting and come back to something that we are now calling the new normal.
Thank you, Bettina. And Brock and Richard, how has it been in Australia?
Thanks, Ryan. It's Richard here. Good evening, everyone. Look, it's been a pretty tumultuous 6 months in Australia, to be really honest. We started the summer season with horrendous bushfires, which, took out over 12 million hectares of the country. There was significant smoke impact across the country. And, as you guys would have seen around the world, over 1 billion animals passed away during that time. So, it was a pretty devastating period for the country when that was all in play. And then soon after that, obviously, we were hit by COVID-19. So the government's done an amazing job here in Australia in as far as it's reacted and as fast as it reacted to basically shutting down our borders, not only internationally, but domestically. I think as a country, we've managed the crisis phenomenally well. The amount of deaths that we've had and the amount of cases we've had are extremely low. But the government is very strict. The lockdowns have been pretty intense. And those lockdowns have certainly had a lot of impact on a number of businesses. A number of sectors have really suffered here in Australia. Sport is a massive part of our country, and sport in Australia has been absolutely devastated, and I can talk a bit about that later on in this. You know, we've also seen tourism and travel. I mean, they were both really badly impacted by the fires, and they've been whacked twice as hard off the back of what happened with COVID, obviously, and it continues to happen. Last weekend, they opened up domestic travel within your state. So you could then, you know, as of last weekend, travel and go away for a weekend or for a night. But prior to that, we weren't able to do that. And, you know, it's just been a pretty challenging time all round. I mean, the hospitality industry here too has been really devastated. Only as of last week have we seen cafes and restaurants start to open up, but, you know, with no more than 20 people at any given time. So it's been, you know, a very, very tough time. I mean, Brock, you can probably talk a little bit more about the working environments and some of those impacts.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest adjustments in Australia, like as Rich mentioned, I think, you know, Australia responded quite swiftly. I think obviously the news agenda was dominated, you know, almost 90% of the time with COVID reporting. But I think, you know, the biggest adjustment for Australians really was the work from home, you know, both for our clients as an agency. It certainly was a tricky time to adjust to, but I think, you know, with the restrictions lifting at the moment, there's a lot of optimism in Australia now, I think, around, you know, what's next, and that we made it through pretty well.
Thanks, Brock. And Bastian, Richard mentioned they had the bushfires in Australia, obviously, before this, and you've had several issues, big issues to deal with in Hong Kong, as we spoke about yesterday. But how are you finding COVID or post-COVID now?
I would say, you know, Hong Kong has been facing a combination of issues since last year. It has been 1 year already, since last June. So we have been experiencing social movements and political uncertainty for the last 9 months. And then quickly, we are facing a lot of challenges because of the COVID-19 challenge. So I would say it was really, really tough for Hong Kong as a market, and, you know, for Hong Kong people ourselves as well. But right now, I would say we are basically 90% back to normal in business operation and in terms of social activities. So basically, I would say, you know, office run pretty smoothly. Retails, restaurants reopen again. So basically we see a better picture since stepping into June. As agency, I think for the past year, I would say 1 year in total, we are proactively thinking about different kind of strategy on how to survive. That's the big topic. And another one is how to integrate ourselves into the e-commerce, and how do we change our communication strategy to something more relevant to the audience and to the consumer as well. So I think later on I can share more examples on how we connect ourselves with e-commerce for the past few months.
Look forward to that. Thank you, Bastian. And Hong, how is it in mainland China?
Hi. Hello?
Hi, Hong.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well, yeah.
Okay. Sorry to be, because these days the Zoom has really a lot of problems. I don't know what, already China blocked the whole, this Google's and WhatsApp, the Facebook. So now the Zoom has problems. So it was doing, for 2-3 months, we can use it normally. But since last week, it's blocked. So this is really one of the things quite difficult in China, I think. Yeah. So in China, actually, as you know, that in February the situation was really difficult for the whole month. Nobody was out, and since March, slowly people back to. The first city started from the factories, so people back to the factories, and then for the office and the shops, the shopping malls and restaurants. So today, let's say, I think for me, that's almost 100% of the shops or restaurant open. Beside those one disappeared. Of course, there are some small ones disappeared, so we cannot see them anymore. But most of the shops open, and seems the business quite get back. And also, the one interesting thing is the Chinese government really push on the consumers. So we can see that, say, in the 5th of May, they even created a special day we called 5-5. Is to some slogan to say, if you like Shanghai, if you like the country, that you go to shopping, something like that. So it's really from the government side pushing on the consumer on the consumer side. So yeah, I think, but still a lot of people wearing masks. I think even now in Shanghai it's quite hot. People still wearing masks. I can't say 100% of people, but 70 maybe, still 60, 70 of people wearing masks. And some fashion brands start to, let's say one of our clients in the fashion, and they say, well, maybe they can produce or design some masks as part of their new products to do it. So yeah, for the agency side, yeah, for sure, we lost some clients, especially related to travel, to hotel parts. But also we can see a lot of our clients really embrace the changes and really goes to digital. And we can see that those brands who, how to say, who prepared to be digital, who really get benefits. And I agree with Bastian just said, actually for us, it's also more and more challenge on how to help the brands, not only in the branding side like we did, but now the people really asking us to create a campaign, and they measure it with the result. And the campaign, most of the campaigns are digital campaigns. So has to cover, with the same budget, have to cover the branding, but also has to cover the sales. So that is the big challenge for us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Hong. And so it seems like the region is beginning to come out of the pandemic. I know that gives us, certainly the people who are listening from Europe, a lot of hope. And sort of into the new normal is now existing. What do you think the opportunities are for brands to build and strengthen their comms post-COVID? And specifically, what can they do in your region? And I'd like to ask Bastian, you mentioned earlier about e-commerce and infrastructure. Perhaps you'd like to pick up on that.
Yeah, definitely. What we see here, it's you know, Hong Kong people are very famous for the agility and the speed of making change, right? So for the past few months, I'm quite impressed by how quick some brands have actually put together an e-commerce site suddenly, right? So this is something that we really see in Hong Kong. And it's an integrated communication agency. We are trying to use our expertise to contribute to the conversation journey of consumers and audience. So one of the new concept that we thought about was social selling in e-commerce. So before COVID-19, we haven't really think about social selling as such an important tool for, you know, making purchase. But then because of the COVID-19 situation, a lot of people buy from e-commerce, right? E-platforms. So we are thinking about how are we able to enable frontline staff, employees for retail brands to equip themselves with a content creation skill set, or enable them with the skill set to talk about brand equity or product benefits in a professional way, using their own social media platform so that they can engage with their customers directly and then sell the products directly. So, you know, even though you stay home, you still buy, right? I mean, honestly, we do buy a little bit of this and that, right? But for the experience, you can't go out and you can't meet the retail staff how are you going to know about the product, or how are you going to get a conversation, a proper conversation with the brand? So we've been doing a lot of new service. One of them is to train the frontline staff to do social selling through brand conversations through their own social media platform. So there has been a new idea, and we see really good result doing that. Yeah, and using our expertise in communication and digital content creation. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you, Basti. And Bettina, what opportunities do you think there are for brands to build on their strength post-COVID in Singapore?
You see, Ryan, Singapore is of course like a tech hub, and we are a small market. So for us, I see always the opportunity to test new things, and looking at the conversations that we had in the previous weeks, I see that there's a lot of integration of new technology, which is quite exciting, to be honest. So clients who are experimenting with holograms, with artificial intelligence, with augmented reality. And what was probably a conversation that we had like years ago, just purely theoretically, is now, and I agree with Bastian, it's just enormous how to see how quick they are adapting. And yesterday we spoke about it, today it's already a reality. Yes, it's a bit shaky, but still you can see there is, a proper call to action. So a lot of things are happening, and it feels like this is really a very accelerated, new feeling for all of us. And if I look at my fashion clients, I see that, of course, COVID has a huge impact on the entire industry in terms of disruptiveness. We see that the circle of fashion of the whole industry is like under question. So again, topics that we had before, like sustainability, that was an add-on, thought, and everyone was doing it almost like a must-have in your communication. But now it's in the core of the new actions taking place, which is great to see. And as I said, there is so much good things happening at the moment for brands readjusting and innovating the way how they do their business. That is quite impressive to see. We have fashion collections that are purely digital. So, which opens up enormous opportunities, not only by, having a collection that is zero waste, because you produce a collection that is only designed for the digital platforms. But it opens up and will change the whole behavior and idea of e-commerce, because for e-commerce we will have like a virtual commerce. Look, and speaking to all these new tech companies, then when you speak with them, you understand that there is a revolution going on at the moment, and that these new collections might be the starting point for a new marketplace that we are not really understanding how this will work in the future. So the e-commerce side has the functionality and the product, but the virtual commerce will definitely have this playfulness, this experiential character that will change the way how we are shopping. And so there is a lot of opportunity coming out of this crisis.
Thanks, Bettina. And Brock, what do you see in Australia? Has there been many changes there? I know you do quite a lot of experiential activity usually. What's happening there?
Yeah, look, I think in Australia, and I think like the other markets as well, COVID-19 has, brought one of the, I guess, the biggest digital transformations in our country, and certainly to, I think, fast-tracking brands and their digital integration, and I guess the opportunity to capture data as well. I think, as a result of that, if it hadn't been to date, certainly now our own channels have never been more important. Thinking about events as well, there's so much opportunity now, and I think so much opportunity to actually benefit the customer experience. About you know, things like digital cues, you know, that increase a brand's ability to collect data. You know, shorter event experiences as well, I think, will be a thing for the rest of the year as well. So, you know, brands will really need to work hard to capture, you know, an audience's attention quickly, but also make that short experience brilliant. And I think as well, you know, the ability to now sample through digital as well, you know, again, a better customer experience, and also better for the brand in its ability to track engagement through to purchase as well. So I think they're sort of some of the things that we're seeing at the moment, and certainly the opportunities. But yeah, we do a lot of work in events here in Australia within Bastion. And I think some of the things that we've seen, or some of the things that we've done for our clients, one of our clients, a large tech company, we recently held a series of virtual supper clubs for influencers. So typically, you know, like influencer events, you bring everyone together and have a gorgeous big dinner or event. So we created a virtual one for our special influencer friends, where we actually packaged up dinners from you know, 5-star restaurants, had them delivered to their home, and had everyone join on a virtual call, which was hugely successful. We've also seen for that same brand, we brought together all of our influencers and actually had them create our advertising campaign. So they filmed the content themselves, which I guess reduced the need for the business to go out in a huge production to film with them. And that content's going live this week, which has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think, again, another one of our brands, Ferrari, they recently had, you know, as you would all know, when you launch a car, it's usually a large spectacle, you know, huge investment into sort of one flagship event. But what we did to pivot during this time, we actually built custom built lounges and car displays that were actually shipped into the dealerships. And so we were able to create, you know, really intimate experiences for Ferrari's very important people. And, you know, added all the luxury touches as well that you would expect, sort of, you know, from a high-end hotel or experience. So yeah, that's some of the things that we've been doing in Australia.
Okay, thanks very much. And to open to the panel, are there any sort of specific watch outs at the moment with working with influencers under COVID? Anything in this climate? Is there anything we should watch out for when engaging with influencers?
I think I think engaging with influencers at the moment, I think the same principles remain in place. You know, it has to be an authentic connection to your brand, you know, relevance. And I think, yeah, just making sure that they are aligned to your brand values. I think, you know, nothing sticks out more in social media and working with influencers when there's sort of, you know, a post that suddenly pops up on their page on a topic they've never spoken about before. I think, you know, that is so important to be, you know, really aligning with the people that are aligned to your brand. I think about sort of like the relationships that we've got with some of our influencers and some of the programs that we run for brands. You know, it's always been about those established relationships, those authentic use cases, and finding those influencers who have, you know, genuinely love your products. You know, and then building that relationship over time. And I think, you know, at a time through like COVID, you know, aligning those influencers to talk genuinely about your products during that time certainly benefited the ones that we work with.
Okay, thank you. And beyond what makes what brands could be doing to change in this climate, do you feel that consumer mindsets in your markets have changed or need to change? And if so, how? And Bettina, would you like to start off with that? I know you've got a specific experience in the luxury field.
Yes, sure. I mean, obviously the mindset has changed, and if we speak about the luxury consumer, then potentially he or she is less impacted. And if we look at research and the data, this is what we have learned from previous crises. However, you know, there is not one luxury consumer. We have to differentiate and understand, you know, there's the consumer who is like the Gen X, obviously, who is consuming luxury goods different than a millennial and a Gen Z. So we see that there are big effects in terms of learning. So I would say that the Gen X or the baby boomers, they started to get familiar with online, which they didn't like at all previously, pre-COVID, when it comes to luxury buying. So the retail experience was the most important. Millennials are, of course, like native digital, so they had never had any kind of issues, as well as Gen Z. For them, obviously, the value proposition is the most important. They are looking into very individual and smaller brands and designers than the big, obviously, you know, big names that we know. And I think that COVID obviously has an impact in terms of from macro to micro. So it will be definitely more of an approach to go to smaller boutiques, to have more curated experiences, because this is all what luxury is about, right? So for luxury brands, I think the most important is to find the right balance between the digital opportunity and the retail, because we can't obviously separate it. And the biggest challenge for digital is that it doesn't have this social component. It doesn't have this experiential, you know, moment where you say like, oh yeah, now I'm sold on this. You know, this is really cool. And we are working on new concepts, and I know that other of our colleagues are doing the same. So the social selling is one point. We see that, and that's probably for the concerning the influencers. I think their role has quite changed in a way that they become your salesperson. It's kind of the new sales force of the brands. And while we speak about authenticity and how important it is that they love the brand, on the other hand, it felt to me much more commercial than it was pre-COVID, and brands are ready to engage them for a pure commercial offer, right? And selling with an experiential setup the products. And I guess that this is the new way how to look forward as well for the influencers, because I think they've been quite concerned about their future, if they will be obsolete in the future, because priorities have shifted. But now it seems they have found another niche where they can be, obviously moving forward and taking an important role.
Thank you, Bettina. And Bastian, do you have any view on that?
I think I totally agree with Bettina on many points. One thing I want to call out is we observe that consumers are now having a new mentality of buy less, but buy better, right? I think it really applies to all brands, no matter your big brands, luxury brands, or local brands. That's the one buying mentality that we see all through, all the brands. So my advice for brands or communication strategists will be to think about the value of your brand and what the purpose of your brand. So what kind of purpose do you contribute to your consumers? For example, for beauty brands, we work with a lot of beauty brands. Apart from looking good, they want to feel good using your products. So maybe they can consider trying to talk more about, the story behind the history or why we are making this product. So, consumers want to know what are they buying. And because of the economic downturn, people are spending less money buying. So they are really, really doing a lot of search before they really buy something. So make sure the brands really sell itself. Either it's qualitative story or product benefits. So everything has to be very visibly displayed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And Hong, how do you feel the consumer mindsets are changing in China?
Oh, unmute.
I'm not sure if Hong is still with us. Richard, do you have anything to add from your experience in Australia?
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with everyone else so far in regards to what they've had to say, Ryan. But one of the areas that we've seen that's been really interesting in Australia is the real estate market. Obviously, the impact that COVID had on that, the way in which people used to view property, the way people would go to open for inspections, all those type of things that people were so used to doing, all of a sudden stopped. And so an industry that was quite old school in the way it worked with traditional media channels had to quickly adapt and move into the digital world very fast. And at the same time, the consumer had to go from going out on a Saturday or during the week to open for inspections to looking at properties through virtual reality or online video tours or virtual tours. And we have quite a sizable PR practice that specialises in property PR, and worked with a number of our clients to really quickly help them move to a digital environment to actually take people through homes in a virtual environment. So video tours of homes, and video auctions even. So that whole world changed fundamentally, and I think everyone's mindset across all the different generations has had to move really fast. And I think, one of the things that I've noticed, particularly in a lot of the businesses we work in and work for a lot of clients across a lot of different categories, is how quickly those industries have adapted to new ways of doing things. So one of our clients, for instance, is a business in Australia called Clark Rubber, and they make a lot of cushions and furniture and things like that. And their business was, significantly impacted during COVID and still is, but they started to make face masks out of their stores because they had all the product. And so they trained all their staff how to make face masks, and, they were able to quickly adapt and create a new business model within their business that served a really great purpose for people on the front line. So there were some very interesting things like that happened, I think, across the way consumers and brands adapted in both spheres to take on the impact of it.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's amazing, isn't it, how established brands and consumers, old and young, can change very quickly when they have to. Hong, did you have anything to add? I'm not sure if Hong can hear us.
Just on mute.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, Hong.
Hi. Yeah. So maybe I can share a little bit about in China, the live streaming, which has really become something very popular, especially actually live streaming started, let's say, almost 2 years ago, but these days, especially after the COVID, it's really become very, very popular. We work, with a lot of luxury brands, but live streaming in the old day was rather for the mass brands. But these days, the live streaming even get into luxury, even like the Louis Vuitton, Chanel, or Burberry, like Harry Winston are doing the live streaming. So some of the live streaming are really only for the introduction of the new collections, but some of them are related to sales. So like say the Burberry, the one is related to sales. So you can, during the live streaming sessions, that you can click and then can guide to you to the sales sessions. So there are different platforms. I see some questions actually one audience is asking. Beside TikTok, there are some other platforms also performs well, even for the live streaming, like the Little Red Book, or let's say the Bilibili. Those are actually, the two of them are quite active in terms of the live streaming in the market. Yeah, but for the luxury brand, there are some challenges related to the live streaming, because sometimes the image could be not really well done. For instance, for the live streaming of Louis Vuitton, actually a lot of criticize on that. Because they want to do the live streaming in the way the young people likes it, so they set up in the shopping mall area, but actually the image was not very well controlled, so the people think that is not very successful. But still, as one of the first try for the live streaming, it helps also the other luxury brand to see to use this new form. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Hol. I suppose on to the future of media and communications, and with consumers digesting information from brands in new ways, as we've been hearing about, what do you think the future media landscape will look like in your market? And Bettina, shall we start with you?
I guess this is going to be, I hope it's wishful thinking what I tell you now. So I hope that we are all surviving, first of all, because I'm a strong, supporter of media, because they are playing such an important role for every society. But I see, of course, that the industry is totally disrupted and stressed. I see that in my markets in Singapore and in Malaysia, unfortunately, up to 17 brands, so newspapers, magazines have been closed, which has, of course, a huge impact, as you can imagine, on the way how we can work and the way how brands can reach out to their consumers, because without an existing and vibrant media landscape, a lot of channels are closed for us and for communication. So how will the future look like? I think media is challenged and was already challenged by the Facebooks and the Googles of these the last 5 to 10 years, because their business model is challenged. From the classical, revenues that we get through advertising, this is not existing in the way how it existed 10 years ago. So they need to come up with new inventive formats of reaching out to readers and making readers excited and be relevant for brands, so that they will come back to these media platforms, because obviously it's clear media has quality, has there is cross-checking there. We understand that there's a kind of security when it comes to luxury content as well for the clients that we are working with. And we see as well other examples, hope, at the end of the tunnel, or light at the end of the tunnel, with a new publication coming now into the market, which is Vogue. And of course, in a pandemic, people might say, why do we need another Vogue in this situation? But I see that fashion, beauty, lifestyle, and a publication such as Vogue is literally, not sparking only conversation, but guiding this conversation, because there are a lot of questions how we should navigate through this process. And as media, there is a big responsibility and opportunity, obviously, to create this conversation. And I feel that we will see potentially new ways of subscription models. we will see that in the future, not all content will be for free. So there will be, and I think we get used to it because of COVID as well. We are consuming, we see a peak in home entertainment, we are seeing a peak in all sorts of mobile engagements, and traffic numbers rise. And we rely on good media content. We rely on information that are important, to keep us in touch, and so that we can make our decisions, etc., etc. So I guess that people will post-COVID understand the value of media and how we have to protect media as well. Because if 17 publications disappear overnight, you are literally lost. There's a big vacuum in the media landscape in Malaysia right now. And there is interesting kind of feedback from clients that there's almost like a social contract to it, that they say, yes, we stand together and we help. And working now with Vogue in this process of launch, I see a lot of support, which makes me very happy to see that there is of course opportunities for us to move forward. But saying this, media needs to come up with innovation, and they are tapping as well into our areas, into agency areas. So they are looking into new opportunities for revenues, and this includes offline event management. So we see that suddenly publishing houses are getting involved into offline projects and events. They have very strong audiences. They have very good data management. So there is a kind of a merger at the moment happening, and we have to readjust and see where we find our roles in this whole new setup. But yeah, I hope the best for media, because we need it, because we are part of the whole conversation. As public relations agency, media is key and very necessary for us, between us and the brands and our consumers.
Thank you, Bettina. And obviously throughout the session we've been talking about e-commerce. It's clearly become massively important for all the brands. But how can we ensure that we create communication strategies that enable e-commerce selling? Bastian, is that something you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think in terms of enabling e-commerce sales, I think as a PR strategist, we can think about how to enable SEO performance, or how to incorporate the SEO mindset in our communication strategy. So, back in a few years, we think SEO and digital, it's something that has nothing to do with us, as PR professionals, because we think they are digital kind of skill set. But I think as of today, it's about us. It's about PR and communication, because SEO, if you have been thinking about how to incorporate SEO in your press release writing, in your content copywriting, or in your programmatics, then everything will be empowered, all along the communication journey, because, all contents can be searched. And if you can win in the search race, then you're more likely to win customers, to win business, right? So I think incorporating the SEO mentality in our strategy, it's one of the very important thing. And qualitatively, I actually think it's a very, very good time for media and communication. I know it sounds crazy, but if you come to think about that, we are all competing in the same market right now, but the market is actually shrinking. So who will be the survivors, right? So only media or brands who are able to create really qualitative content can stay. So I think it will be a very good opportunity for us to rethink how we can do better, as media or as PR professional, So how can we create better contents that are authentic, content that is relevant? I mean, relevant that is really relevant to your consumers, right? Not from your point of view, but what do they want to hear? What do they need? What do they need to buy? Right, so this is a reverse way of thinking that I think will enlighten us as well.
Thank you, Gaston. Hong, what do you think the media landscape will look like in China moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, like everyone says, the print, it gets more difficult in China since years, but still, I find it's interesting is the younger generation, the very, let's say, the Generation Z, and they start to there's some new print media started in China. So especially for the younger, the very young one, the Generation Z, and they like to have to read some print media, especially for some media who has how do we call that, authority. I see some question talk about, to say the Vogue, if Vogue, what is the position? I mean, how the print media plays roles in the market. I think in China it is still important. So for most of our clients, we still have not half, but let's say 1/3 of our job is still dealing with the print media, with the authority one. Then of course in this market, and the media who can remain, somehow the people thinking, the consumer think, the media who can remain are the good one. So and there's also another thing towards to the influencer, because influencer, I cannot say the influencer it's not important, but somehow influencer become less important than, let's say, a year or 2 years ago, because at that time the people were just thinking influencer can replace everything. But today, I think especially in the WeChat platform, the influencer reach are kind of sailing. So then the people coming back, like Bastian just said, they think about what is the real good content, because in the print media, whatever from Vogue or GQ or Elle, the content is really, I can't say timeless, but it's really lasting. That some content is really relevant, and something is really beautiful that people still want to keep it.
Thank you, Hong. And Rob, insights from Australia.
I might throw to Rich on that one. He's been on the front line with media recently.
Thanks, Brock.
Richard, over to you.
No worries, Ryan. Look, it's a really interesting market at the moment in Australia from a media point of view. There's been a significant convergence of media. I mean, only recently News Corp shut down 100+ regional newspapers. That was predominantly off the back of both the bushfires and COVID-19, because there's just not the advertising dollars going in to support those papers, and they just can't obviously sustain them. I think, the way in which the market's evolving is that there are less media in Australia now, but to play in that space as a PR agency, I think the smartest PR agencies are those that are winning, those that understand what the media outlet is writing for or communicating to. And so understanding their audience really well and getting the journalist a really good story that's absolutely right for their reader or viewer is absolutely imperative. And I think totally what Bastian said earlier around SEO, I think more and more agencies these days, the smarter agencies are writing for SEO, embedding keywords in press releases and in content to ensure that every piece of content that goes out on behalf of a brand is connected, and it all comes back to the one spot. And I just think that, an opportunity in this market now is really for PR to shine. There's been a big distrust for media, typical media agency environment. There's been a lot of distrust in Australia around spend and media spend. I think, media and PR and creative agencies coming together these days are really powerful. I think the owned and earned channels that we can both play in, where the creative adds the firepower to the PR campaign, and we bring those to life across owned and earned channels, and then amplify them across the paid channels, is where, you know, we're going to get significant impact across all brand sectors, from luxury right through to FMCG in that environment.
Okay, thanks very much, Rich. So thank you all so much for your time talking us through what's happening in your markets, and it's been incredibly insightful, certainly for me, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners as well. We have actually got quite a lot of questions from the audience, so without further ado, I'd like to get on to some of those questions. We've certainly got some time. First question I wanted to ask, sorry, this is where technology breaks down and I'm trying to multitask, so bear with me. So one question I've got here: do you think live streaming will cheapen a brand's identity, especially for luxury brands, since it's perceived less exclusive? Now, we've got a lot of luxury experts here. Who would like to have a stab at that one?
I'm happy to answer. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm obviously, you know, I do so much with the luxury clients at the moment. So I guess it's all a question of execution and the way how you will use this tool. So in general, yes, live streaming is an opportunity, but you need to find your own take on it, and the execution needs to be impeccable when you use it for a luxury brand.
Okay, thank you. Bastian, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, actually, I would consider live streaming as a very good opportunity for luxury brand to broaden their audience base. You know, that's a very good opportunity for them to reach out to people that they have been missing, you know, they have been left out, you know. But I totally agree with Bettina on, you know, the execution of excellence, or how you craft the content of the live streaming broadcast. So I don't think that really cheapens the brand, given what your benchmarking of standard is. So that's fine.
But it seems like we only speak about social, you know, like the social live streaming, but there are new opportunities. As I told you, there is a new like squatted shopping. I've never heard this before, just recently, 3 days ago, invented by an ex-beauty member of L'Oreal. Very, very interesting. It's an app where you can do shopping online with your friends. And this is exactly what we discussed before. So the emotional aspect of online shopping, by inviting your friends and going shopping online together, is a different experience. So squatted shopping parties will appear definitely in the future, and they might be more curated. They might be by invitation only. So these are options where we see, you know, there is one trend, and then you see how this is developed in different directions, and obviously can be adapted to different segments and industries.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm thinking, I want to add. Hello. Hi. Yeah, I just want to say one word. Yeah, the connection is not very well. I just want to say something about the live streaming. So actually, in China now, it's more and more the luxury brand doing the live streaming. But most of them, how to say, it depends on who are your audience. Of course, when we talk about live streaming, it could be the audience for everyone, and you put it in the platform that the people can see, but also there's a part, there's a live streaming like we did for Harry Winston. Actually, we invited their clients. So it's really by inviting. And then when you by inviting your clients, and then depends on the purpose, you can doing the education parts, you can really showing your brand image, are quite different of the live streaming when we talk about on the Tmall or on the e-commerce platform. I think that is quite two different things. So like Bettina or Bastian said, if you can well control the quantity, well, not really, I mean, of course, control the quality, but to whom you want to deliver this live streaming, and then of course the content will be different. Yeah.
Thank you, Hong. On to the next question. Can you show examples of any PR influencer activities that haven't performed or been received well or positively during this period? Brock, is there anything that comes to mind from Australia?
I'm just trying to think. Like, I'm trying to think about our own experiences. I know, as I mentioned before, like the news agenda at the time was, like for the last few months at least, has all been, you know, 99% almost COVID related. So I think, you know, it's really been about finding an authentic and natural way to weave your what your brand has to say, and ensuring it has a right to say what it's saying at that time. And I think, you know, that's probably where you've seen probably brands misstep a bit. You know, certainly we have the filter of journalists quite often when we're talking to media. But I do think that that has also worked incredibly well for others. You know, I think Rich, you can probably talk about some of the recent examples of work as well, more on the property front. But I think it's it's certainly been about being relevant to what the news agenda is at the time.
Thank you. And does anyone else have any ideas there or examples there perhaps where brands haven't done well during this period?
I think the word, obviously, when they are just, you know, keep radio silent. So I understand that they are stressed and they don't know what to do, but to keep your consumer somehow updated, and it's even sharing, you know, the difficult times as well. So they will appreciate this in the future, and it's kind of the dialogue that you build with the brand, and they are appreciating it. Really bad examples I didn't see, but I see a lot of good examples. So I saw a lot of, you know, fantastic initiatives, again, from the fashion and beauty industry, where they are just, you know, turning their whole business model upside down, and they are starting to produce hand sanitizers or, you know, crowdfunding opportunities where they have, you know, supported hospitals. We had here a beautiful little story from a local ice cream store, and he was delivering to all the medical workers in the hospitals ice cream for free, because working in these, you know, protective gears all day long, they are sweating extremely, and when they have 5 minutes, you know, for a break, or 10 minutes for a break, they love to have this ice cream. So everyone speaks about it here in Singapore. It's very local, but still it's a very, you know, it's a sign of humanity. It's a sign of that we are in this together. And when it comes to media, I have seen for IMV, for example, that we have offered all the inventory available to clients to promote their charity initiatives and projects that are relevant for in this time. And I mean, obviously Gucci was one of the first that has promoted quite intensively We Are in This Together. I have seen from Vogue International that they have initiated a project called The Common Thread, and with this raising awareness for the issues that designers have during this time. They have managed to get a fundraiser of over $1 million to support them getting back to their business. So there is a lot of positivity, and it got really the best out of people. And if so to say, there is, it was really great to see that there is not only the commercial aspect, and I think this is what consumers really appreciated. And this should continue post-COVID, I think that would be my advice, really to step back and have another look on how you organize your communication, so that it's relevant for the situation people are right in right now.
Thank you, Bettina.
Ryan, it's Richard. I was just going to say, one of the interesting things that happened here in Australia during COVID-19 was a number of influencers were found to be promoting alcohol. Obviously, you know, the government was concerned about alcohol consumption in a time of lockdown and people drinking too much and smoking excessively, etc. And there were a number of influencers found out to be being paid by alcohol brands here in Australia to promote drinking during that time. So really pushing brands hard at that time. So I think, you know, those sort of things were a big watch out, you know, where it was really obvious that the influencer was a pay-to-play model. And, you know, you could really see that there was no connection between the influence, particularly in the brand, but they were out there obviously promoting that.
Yeah, I think
it's interesting you say that, Rich. Just picking up on that, our South African partner I was speaking to a couple of weeks ago, not only did they ban the advertising and influencer promotion of cigarettes and alcohol in South Africa, they also banned the sales for at least a month. So it's quite interesting how different countries work in different ways.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they
Brock,
certainly cracked down on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next question. TikTok seemed to really take off in the UK during the recent months. Have you seen any other apps in your market with heightened success during this time? Hong, I'd like to ask you this. Sorry, I think Hong is having connection difficulties. Maybe just a slight delay. Bastian, would you like to take that question?
Yes, I can. I can share a little bit from Hong Kong perspective. I think TikTok has been popular starting from Asia, and now, you know, we see you know, it's getting really popular in the US and the European market. I read quite a lot of research on TikTok, and people are having, you know, yes and no about TikTok in terms of you know, capturing business, or, you know, capturing conversion using TikTok. So my point of view is, it is an entertainment platform that people want to enjoy themselves watching TikTok. Okay, and one of the things about TikTok is until now they are not able to provide measurable matrix on how the content turned into conversion. Okay, business conversion. So this is one of the way that it contributes to a barrier of, you know, making TikTok a very ideal platform for promotions, I would say brand promotions. But if you consider that it's a very casual platform to allow your brand to engage with your audience, in terms of engagement, I think that's a pretty ideal platform. But then, of course, you have to consider what kind of image your brand is trying to present, right? So not all brands are suitable for TikTok as well. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Bastian. Any other comments from the panel there on use of or increased use of new apps or platforms? I
think in Australia, you know, a lot of the apps like Zoom and a lot of the video sharing apps have become very popular as a result of lockdown. Lots of people are remaining connected and trying to stay connected. You know, we're seeing lots of things like virtual Friday drinks. You know, we're seeing lots of families connecting over social apps. So, you know, there's a lot of things like that people have always known about and probably have used sporadically in business, but never really personally. And so, you know, I've seen We've seen examples here in Australia of popular dinner parties where people have virtual dinner parties and they all connect. So they're having an entree and a main and a dessert at the same time, and they're all coming from different locations. So there's been some interesting, take up of apps that have been around for a while that, have really sort of seen the light of day as a result of people in lockdown and people trying to stay connected.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think for Singapore the same. So we have Zoom as one of the top apps, as well as IGTV suddenly became very, very, very popular. It was not as recognized, but now Zoom and this whole idea of connecting again helped a lot of event companies and event projects to carry on. So I think they really gave the framework for events still taking place. So it's very, very, very important new addition to the tool set that we have available.
Okay, thank you then. And we have a question specifically to travel retail, and I'm not sure if any of you specialise or work in travel retail at all. But how are you dealing with the challenges in the sector, especially since your countries, mainly Asia, have started to open slightly? In Europe, we're still a long way behind. So if you've got any advice on how travel retail is picking up again as a sector?
We've been doing quite a lot of travel retail business before COVID. So I can tell you, it has been completely silent, the travel retail business. I mean, but what they were trying to do is, apart from the lockdown and travel restriction, some of the brands trying to leverage with DFS, duty free, to sell their products to consumers directly through e-commerce. So this is what's happening in Hong Kong. So I think that's a good idea. There are no other ways that they can reach out to consumers, but they are connecting and leveraging DFS to do the business with local consumers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bastian. Bettina, a specific question for you. Can you please let us know what online shopping with a friend platform is?
Sorry, what an online platform?
You mentioned an online shopping platform. I think it was a friend.
Spotted shopping. I'm sure that everyone who's listening was very alerted about it, because it rang the bell for everyone. When I heard first about it, I thought like, oh, that's a very good solution for everyone. So it's called a Squatted Shopping, and it's an application. And with the app, you are able to connect, smaller groups of friends, and they can go shopping online together. So just look it up. It's Squatted and Co. Yeah, here, live everyone. Thank you for sharing this.
Okay, we'll all be shopping on that later.
Oh yeah, we'll see.
just time for a couple more questions. So, do you think events will ever be the same as before, or are you expecting more of a hybrid approach between offline and digitally enhanced experiences moving forward? And Rob, would you like to take that one?
So can you just repeat that once more?
So, do you think events will ever be the same as before, or are you expecting a more hybrid approach between offline and digitally enhanced experiences moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, it will be interesting to see how sort of like the next 6 months plays out in Australia. I think everyone's very cautious of in-person events, particularly whilst, like, obviously social distancing is in play. It sort of makes things very difficult. We've got sort of big sporting events here in Australia, music festivals, etc., which, is a brand's playground really to connect with consumers. So I think it'll be interesting to see how brands begin to, start tapping into that same consumer base that those events have, perhaps through the hybrid approach of, both digital experiences and sponsorships. Sponsorships still continuing, and the rights that you have to those assets, and then also with the the in-person experience as well when those events do start up again. Rich, you've got a couple of points on that as well, don't you?
Yeah, I think one of the things you'll probably start to see moving forward in the future is really collaborative brand integrations, where two brands come together to create an online and an offline experience, and they can both benefit from each. I think you're going to see, you know, we're certainly starting to see here in Australia a lot of technology around the shopping experience. We look after a number of premium shopping centres as clients, and you know, the way in which they're looking at which, and you know, how they can segment their different consumer and how they can create an experience for them that may be totally different to what, you know, a different type of shopper coming into that centre may be interested in. So for instance, you know, Melbourne Central's a significant shopping centre in the city of Melbourne. They recently partnered with us, and we did a campaign for them around a unicorn festival. And that was really targeted to millennials, but it was a festival that all the different brands within the centre got involved in. But it created a moment that specifically was designed around encouraging a specific group of shoppers to come into that centre at a particular time and engage with a whole lot of different brands in a different way. So they ran that both digitally and in real time in the centre. And so it was a great way of giving both people a digital experience of the event and also a physical experience. I think one of the things we're also seeing in Australia too is we've got a significant Chinese population, and you know, WeChat as a platform and the functionality of WeChat as a platform, you know, is really starting to demonstrate to other brands here in Australia that aren't on those sort of platforms how that physical and digital interface can be brought together.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, I think everyone should be well placed to answer, given you're all agency CEOs and/or owners. What will the biggest challenge and also opportunity be for PR agencies in the upcoming year? And Bastian, should we start with you on that? I know you're always looking for opportunities.
I try to be optimistic, okay? And I myself consider it a very good time for us to really rethink and reframe our understanding of what a communication specialist or a PR agency should be. We have to be very creative in thinking about what we can offer. Okay, so maybe previously we were experts in media relations, influencer, but then moving into the future, I think there are a few key factors that enable us to survive or to be better, even better. Okay, I think one of the key factors is the digital integration. I mean, I always say we are not trying to become a digital agency, but how are we going to equip ourselves with relevant skill sets, digital skill sets, to enable us to create strategies that are also digitally proven to be successful, to create, you know, to complete the communication process for our brands. So that's one of them. And the second one is, if we can think of ourselves as a combination of a communication agency and a creative agency, I think that will be a good opportunity for all of us, because we are good at creating contents, and we are good at crafting messages, and we are good at talking to people. We are good at talking to brands. So if we can combine communication and creativity and add a little bit of digital mentality, for example, SEO and a thing that we mentioned, I think that will empower us. It's a good, it's a future-proofing communication agency, I would say. Yes.
Thank you. And Hong, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I totally agree with Bastian. I think she just said what I'm thinking. I really think so. I also find, I mean, our job, the communication or PR agency was really relied on the relationship with the media, with the influencer, and etc. Today, for sure, the job, what we should do is not, the job line is not that clear anymore. For instance, there are some clients, we're always working with international clients. There are some new brands, let's say a lot of brands want to enter the China market. So not only the parts they want us to help them to set up the communication strategy, but also we need to be create kind of creative to help them to find the connections. Let's say the connections of, even for the business channels. So today actually, let's say the people enter the China market and they want to say, we want to go to the e-commerce. And then for the past years, we worked a lot with what we call the TP. It's a term really, a kind of company who help those brands to do the e-commerce. So we need to working with them as well. We need to understand, like Bastian just said, we need to have this mindset and also skill to understand the digital, not the digital in, not only in the communication fields, but also the digital parts to understand how to set up their business in the e-commerce as well. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Hong. And Rich, would you like to take that one?
Unmute. Yep, unmute. Yeah, no problems, Ryan. Look, one of the things I think for us that we're seeing in the industry is you've got to diversify. You know, you can't be a one-man band and have a specialist skill set and just be that. I mean, we'll see at the end of this, off the back of COVID, I think you'll see a number of agencies collapse here in Australia. Those that have been specialists in travel or tourism or hospitality, you know, they just haven't diversified. And so they basically, you know, as those industries have been impacted significantly, those agencies have been impacted significantly. So, you know, the best agencies in market, I think, are those that diversify. I think those agencies that then bring in the best skill set, and bringing in skill sets like Bastian talked about earlier as well, that aren't typically skill sets that sit in a PR agency. Bringing in SEO expertise, bringing in, you know, creative people, bringing in even media people. You know, we've got media expertise in our agency now because we need to understand the buying model and be closer to that model. So I think the more we bring in specialisation into the agency, I think, you know, it's the time for PR to really shine. And I think, you know, as long as we diversify and keep innovating, we'll really move forward and we'll get to be at, you know, a better seat at the table and earlier in the conversation and thought about much quicker in the briefing process, because they'll see the value in what we can deliver across earned and owned channels for them.
Thank you, Rich. And Bettina, do you have any words of wisdom?
A lot of things have been said that I just can highly agree on. But I think it's really a new skill set for people in PR, and a slightly different understanding what PR could mean in the future. I think that PR is very strong in terms of storytelling and certainly in orchestrating the entire communication process. So I see ourselves as people who have the ability to bring all parts together of the communication mix. So it's a really 360 approach. And for the longest time, this is already our reality. It's not that I get a classical PR brief anymore. I get a communications brief where I look into event management, into marketing, into SEO, into digital, into the entire, you know, like circle of communication. So in this sense, again, COVID might accelerate that this is even more present for all of us in our day-to-day work. But in reality, this is already happening, and there is a shift to a much bigger role that we are taking on, integrating different parts and being consultants for our clients to make the most of it. And we already, discussing KPIs and return of investments as, that's the first question that you have when you start a campaign planning. So it's not that we are just the nice storytellers. No, we have a clear business task and goal in mind, helping our clients to achieve their business objectives. For me, the challenge will be as well to readjust in terms of teams and in terms of offering that is very flexible to the needs of our clients, because previous models might be questioned, and I think that we want to have a very fluid and kind of almost on-demand service for clients whenever they need it. And if there is no long-term commitment possible, then these are new, formats of services and collaborations with brands. So flexibility, looking into hybrid model. I am super excited about the fact that we have seen and proved that remote work is really an interesting way of moving forward, because we see some of our staff members being even better and more effective working from home, and others who need the social component and being in the office. So it will be our task to tailor the teams, evaluate, and see what is the best option to as well to have teams for our clients with a much more fluent way of working. So looking ahead, very positive. I think that there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of innovation and creativity. So of course, we have to adapt, and we will do so, and we will certainly survive.
Thank you there. So to summarize, I think the next year is going to bring a lot of diversification, and we're going to need to embrace change and be really, really flexible. And I think we've been talking about this for a number of years, and if we can take one positive out of COVID, I think it's going to really get our agencies fit for the next years going forward, and we're going to have to do it very quickly. Never fails to amaze me how positive everyone in SERMO is, and I really want to thank you all so much for joining this morning, or this evening. And obviously, everyone that's joined us as well, I hope you found it insightful. Thank you so much for joining and your questions. Keep your eyes peeled on the SERMO communications social pages over the next couple of days, because we will be doing a roundup and a summary of key learnings. So thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.